Welcome to Untame Your Flame Podcast, where we talk about all things on the journey to realigning with the you that you love, to recalibrating with your twin flame, and to pulling in your physical partnership with the one that deeply connects with you on every level of your being. I'm your host, Cheryl, and let's get into it. Hi there, and welcome back to the show. Today I'm joined by a lovely guest that I'm actually really looking forward to chatting to. We've got some really good content to discuss, and he has a lot of valuable insights to share. I came across Miroslav through an embodiment summit that he was part of. It was like an online event, a sort of seminar thing with a collection of speakers who were all talking about different aspects of embodiment. And I remember watching his webinar. He had like an hour-long piece, and just frantically taking down notes. It was just so good. And from that point, I started following him on Facebook and Instagram. So I'll share a little bit about Miroslav first of all, and then we'll get into the episode. Miroslav Bardovic is a TedX speaker, facilitator, and best-selling author who has worked with over 20,000 people across the world, supporting them to bring their message to the world. He's the founder of the Enlivened Speaking Institute, where he teaches speakers to deliver their message with authenticity, to connect with their audience and build rapid trust. Miroslav has written an academic thesis on the use of embodied presence for engagement for the Monash University, Australia's leading education university, which he later utilised to write his best-selling book, Give Them Goosebumps, utilise the power of presence to own the stage of communication. His message and off-the-beaten-path approach speaks to leaders, coaches, and entrepreneurs who want to embrace a deeper, more conscious way of communicating and leading through mind, body, and spirit. He's fascinated by how we can be more fully alive with everything we do and believes that being in connection with our own personal presence is the most important dynamic relationship we have in life. This is the power of presence. So thank you. Welcome to the show. Thanks for joining me, Miroslav.
Thank you for having me, Cheryl.
So, first of all, I wanted to frame this episode with the idea of being in relationship to your truth. Because whilst I want to focus more on the expression side of things with you today, as that's your sort of area of expertise and your domain, I also see the link with that to what I share in the twin flame journey, in that I feel like being in relationship to our truth is a big part in being able to draw in or magnetize our soul counterpart, our aligned relationship, and being able to maintain that. And as far as I'm concerned, our twin flame relationship, or whatever you want to call that deep soul aligned relationship, is actually an external physical manifestation of being in relationship to your truth. So before I ask you any questions, I just wanted to share a couple of things from my journey in relation to this. So I've always found it, I mean, it's getting better now, but I find that when I've been in front of some sort of audience, not really in a professional speaking capacity as yet, but I've been called up in front of rooms like that. I've been part of events and stuff, and I found this like overwhelming emotional sensation in my body and finding it difficult to communicate and stay present with that in front of a room. You just feel this like, especially if it's something that, especially if I'm trying to tell a story that's deeply meaningful to me or is charged with emotion. I've also noticed that since I embarked consciously on the twin flame journey, or became aware of this template or concept consciously, I found that at times it's been difficult to express what it is that I've been aware of. I've found that it's almost been like trying to translate communication from some other realm, or like angelic awareness or soul knowing, something that I've known at a deeper level than the human level. And that's been quite challenging. I'm like, how do I tell people what I know in a way that they can relate to it? I'd have people at work or that in the past that would look at me like, what has she been smoking? Like, what are you talking about? There was no reference point in their relationship experience to what I was trying to share. And then also a little bit more of a personal story of mine. The man that catalyzed this journey for me, or sort of catalyzed me being consciously aware of it, I found myself wanting to tell him that I loved him at one point, and that was so scary. I was like, oh, But then, as I've heard you say about some of your stories, it was more important to me to be in relationship with my truth
Mm,
and communicate and honor what I was feeling than whether he'd reject me or what he thought
yeah.
about it, or even harboring the thought or the feeling of, well, what would have happened if I told him? I felt like that's secondary to the fact that I need to acknowledge and express my truth here. It
Yeah,
was,
beautiful.
which relates to a quote from Maggie Kuhn, the journalist, who says, "Speak your truth even if your voice shakes."
Mm.
So, that being said, I wanted to first of all speak to you or ask you about what does it mean being in relationship to your truth? What does that mean to you? And what's been your personal experience of that?
I think where you started this is a really good point. And the way I teach my work, so it's called rapid trust and building rapid trust. And for me, there's three pillars to it. One of them is authenticity, one is attunement, and the last one is alignment. And what you're saying here for me is like, yeah, first you have to know your truth. It's hard to be authentic unless you have a deep relationship to what alignment means. And I'd
Mm,
say beyond that, that relationship is one that isn't stationary.
mm,
Like alignment is continually changing. As long as we're alive, we're going to keep changing. And can we be in relationship and proximity to the way truth is moving through us? And
mm.
I guess like I want to say surrendering, but that word is a bit beaten about. Maybe more like
Yeah.
yielding to the truth, allowing the
Mm,
truth to be that which lives through us, as opposed to that which we conceive as safe or comfortable or okay. And all of those things are beautiful too. Like we need them as well. But I
mm.
think if we have too much of them, we can very easily sacrifice what feels true and alive in our life.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that's definitely something that comes up for people. I feel like people are in a bit of inner conflict at times with having a desire to show up authentically, and then can they actually do that? It's like they want to be their authentic self and they want to express that way, but they're either not aligned with their truth or they are aligned with their truth, but they're uncomfortable with expressing it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I've also heard you talk about AI on another podcast and how AI gives us the perfection, but what we long for is humanness. We long for real connection. And I wanted to discuss a little bit with you about how presentations have changed or how speaking has changed, and even how you want to evolve speaking to bring more connection and humanness and engagement. How is embodied speaking different to the form of speaking that we've seen for many years? Do you think people have followed that old path of memorized scripts and presentations to create a sense of safety? And is that really where the authentic safety is? Or how do we cultivate that authentic safety within ourselves to share a message? And how do we transmit a message so that its essence can be felt, so that the audience can feel its essence?
I think what we have to look at is why do we memorize? And
Mm,
9 times out of 10, people are memorizing because they're afraid. They're afraid of not
yeah.
having anything to say. And for me, there's a very clear distinction between preparation and memorization. And I don't know if there's ever a time I would recommend memorizing. Uh,
Mm,
Maybe if you're like, I don't know, a life sentence and you need to memorize a speech or something. But for the most part, I would always lean into authenticity and preparing as much as possible with what it is we want to communicate, who's the audience we're communicating to, what's the best way to communicating this, but allowing the communication itself to have life, to have breath, to have
mm,
the spontaneity of human connection. I'm like, oh, people aren't listening. I need to change what I'm saying or how I'm delivering it. The way we
mm,
in any other meaningful human connection, for me, the stage doesn't sit as its own thing where it's like, cool, we're going to strip our humanness, we're going to rehearse all our gestures, our words, and our facial expressions, and then we're going to do this thing called performing. And performing is okay, like people do it all the time, but for me, that's not speaking. Like it's not creating the depth of
yeah.
connection that we yearn for. And there was a piece of research that was done by Noah Zandan and his team where they looked at I think it was about 30,000 presentations, I don't know, 28, 29,
Mm,
30,000, something like that. And they found the top 10% of authentic speakers were 130% more trustworthy, and something else that's not coming to me right now. But I'm like, that just speaks volumes. Like the people that are willing to be authentic are the ones that create the trust
Yeah,
and impact that we're really
yeah,
in.
yeah. And I've noticed that even as a participant in like events, like going to see speakers speak, the people that really connect with me and resonate with me are the people that have been able to communicate their truth and been able to communicate their emotions even, because it does create that sense of humanness and that sense of real connection, as opposed to the guru on the stage just saying all the right words, and
Yeah.
yeah. You mentioned the word attunement before, and I feel like from what you're saying, it's partly attunement to your audience and being able to gauge, are they engaged and stuff, and also attunement to yourself
Mhm.
and being able to like both, I guess, temper the emotion a little bit. Then yeah, being able to know what it is that you're trying to communicate and what you want to convey to the audience in a way that they can connect with.
Yeah,
Yeah.
completely. I mean, I don't really have much else to say, but yeah, I agree with you. Like
Yeah,
that
yeah,
capacity to hold ourselves is fundamental.
yeah, yeah. It's funny because we're talking about embodied speaking, or you share it from the stage perspective, but I feel like it's even relevant with our relationships in life. How can we be embodied when we're talking to our partner, when we're talking to our friends, when we're dealing with people as we go about life? I feel like it's equally as relevant as when you're standing on a stage.
Yeah. A lot of the time people come to me and they're like, I don't really want to speak on stage. And I'm like,
Mm.
this isn't about speaking on stage. We're just the stage so you can see your speech patterns and you can see the way you're
Mm.
communicating in every area of your life. The stage is just a magnifying glass. Now, this is the way I teach, the way I relate to it, and the way I teach my clients and students to relate to it. If you're getting up there and memorizing, it doesn't teach you anything about your life. It only teaches you how well you can perform. But if we're bringing this kind of relationship to it, yeah, I've had so many people do my work and say, you could have done this as relationship training, as leadership
Yeah.
training. This is just really good communication. I'm like, I know.
Sales training, even dealing with business
Yeah,
conversations.
sales
Yeah.
training is what I do. And I'm saying the same
Yeah.
stuff to people in sales. I'm like, yes, I'm training you in sales, but what you're really learning is just how to communicate well and how to listen well and how to respond well.
Yeah, and it seems such a fundamental, basic thing, communicating, but not a lot of people do it very effectively.
Yeah. And, what I've found, like, I've worked with thousands of people now.
Yeah,
What I found is we all have certain algorithms of expression that come naturally to us and that we do really well. Like some people are really humorous, they don't even have to think about it. They can just have everyone laughing on the dot. Some people are
yeah,
very reflective and that comes to them, effortlessly. And I
yeah.
find the vulnerability is in extending our range of communication. So for a
Mm,
lot of people, when I'm teaching them how to be comfortable in sales, it's like they're holding a lot more power inside of their communication. And there's like a vulnerability in growing into, okay, can I hold this kind of influence? Can I feel safe to communicate in this way?
yeah, yeah. And it can be a little bit scary when you're not in an intimate, in a relationship sense, but in an intimate situation when you're faced with a person that's staring at you. That can be uncomfortable, but it can also feel quite intimate on stage when you're speaking and you just got all these eyes looking at you. And
Mm.
and you feel like there's a lot of attention and you're having to hold that energy and that, yeah, the intimacy, and being able to stay present with it. um
Yeah.
yeah. How can embodied speaking change the way that our message comes across or how it's conveyed? Like, what do you think about that?
Well, it's like permeability, I would say. Like some people say to me, I can already speak on stage. And I'm like, what you're calling speaking and what I'm calling speaking are two different things. Like anyone can
Mm,
get up and speak. Like, okay, you do need a certain level of nervous system calibration to not panic, to not choke, to not,
yeah.
go white in the face and just go bird
Mm.
eyed. When so yes, there is a level of growth and experience it takes to be able to talk on stage. But then people get that and they think that's the end of the journey. And I'm like, no, you're just kind of hitting the first level.
Yeah.
Usually when people are at that stage, they're just talking at their audience,
Mm,
which isn't a
mm,
great deal of skill set. It's like taking someone out for coffee and talking at them for an hour. Like
mm,
we've made progress, but for me, it's like as human beings and what's possible for us inside of communication, we can go a lot deeper than this.
mm,
For me, where embodiment comes into it is, can I allow what feels alive in my relationship to what I'm teaching to be something the audience can marinate in and take home for
mm,
themselves? So their relationship to this thing is fundamentally changed. And what this means on like a black and white level, it's like if you're speaking about conserving the oceans, at the end of the talk, it's the difference between someone going, thanks, that was a really good talk. You're a really good speaker, compared to you've really changed my relationship to this, and I'm going to stop eating fish.
Yeah.
I'm like, now the message is permeated all the way into the way they relate with life.
So how do we shift that? How do we change from talking at people to engaging with them?
Come do my training.
Fair enough.
And I say that like tongue in cheek because there's a lot
Yeah.
to it.
Yeah.
We could spend hours just talking about good storytelling and what makes good storytelling and the research behind good storytelling, which is an element of it. We can
Yeah.
talk about the way we ask questions. Are we
Yeah.
listening to the nonverbal, the energetic response from the audience when we ask a question, or are we just asking a question because it's in the script? And
Yeah.
the audience unconsciously knows the difference.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the way I sometimes explain it is it's like when you're actually connecting, they're going to feel that connection. And when you're not, it's like when you go to a used car salesman and you're like, I don't know why, but I just can't trust this person. It's like,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it's similar with speakers. It's like the more we're willing to tread that line of, to banter the same word again, authenticity, the more of this genuine connection we're going to create.
Yeah, yeah, and I think with that old style of presentations and speaking and posturing and performing, I feel like people are trying too hard to create connection rather than just powerfully being in a way that naturally does that.
Mm.
They're trying to like, oh, I've got to do it this way or that way or whatever, and it's like, no, how do we bring out more of ourselves and show that in front of people, essentially?
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
That's scary. Like the reason
Oh,
why
it's
we speak
terrifying.
memorization is because, like we said, it creates a level of safety. And to go out there and just be like, okay, I'm gonna express or expose myself for who I really am,
Yeah,
it's a completely different pathway.
yeah. It's like breaking through like that facade or that false self of who we're pretending to be and
Mm,
actually showing up as who we actually are. But then I feel like that's where the depth of connection comes. Whether you're on stage or not, when you actually show up and let yourself be seen, that's where people can, that's what makes the difference with how deeply people are able to resonate with you or feel you or connect with you when you're, yeah, showing up. And
exactly.
yeah. But yeah,
Yeah.
like you said, it's terrifying. And yeah, I guess how would you say that you can calibrate your nervous system so as not to allow that to influence how you're able to show up? Do you
Mm.
have any wisdom
Yeah.
on that?
I mean, titration is probably a good word.
Hmm.
And again, what I say to people is go to a training. Like I know in my trainings, I'm creating a space where people can do this.
Yeah,
And you don't need a professional training. Get a group of friends together
yeah,
and just practice doing it where the stakes are really low. And I'm like, there is no doubt in my mind that we need training environments, whether that's official or unofficial. You
yeah,
can't train this with your mirror because when
yeah,
eyeballs look at you, it's very different than you
yeah,
pretending like someone's looking. You can't pretend your way into a nervous system. Like you can, but it's not the same.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
So for that reason, what I suggest is number one, be with live audiences and spend as much time with them as you can. And I
yeah,
often say to my students and clients, get on as many different stages as you can, even stuff
yeah,
that's not relevant to your vocation. Go out there and do some spoken word poetry and
yeah,
just let your nervous system calibrate to what happens when you're hit by the external gaze, because there's
yeah,
always a nervous system response inside of that. And sometimes people don't pick up on it. And we want
yeah,
to develop our sensitivity to come out of that response and soften, because in the softening is where
yeah,
we're going to meet the audience.
yeah, yeah,
And typically, what I say to people is before you speak, just take 4 or 5 breaths and don't even
yeah,
count the breaths. It's not about how
yeah.
many.
Just breathe. Yeah,
Yeah, it's just the quality. And
yeah,
you'll get to a point where you don't have to do this anymore. But that's why, like on your early stages, the first 10, 15, 20, just really develop that relationship for what's the flavor of this stage before I even start speaking.
mm. What do you mean by that? What's the flavor of the stage?
Well, it's like every, let's say, dish has its own scent.
Mm.
And even if your eyes are closed, there's a scent that's there. And then when you open your eyes before you even put your teeth on it, you're already digesting and communing with this meal.
Yeah,
And for me, a stage is exactly the same. way before I open my mouth or I say anything, there's already a scent, a flavor,
mm,
a taste that's in the room because of the people and where we are and what our expectations are. And the
mm,
more we can tune to that, the more delicious the whole experience can become for us and the audience.
yeah, yeah. And that's what I found for myself as well, that the discomfort on stage or the nervous system response isn't necessarily my own, in terms of like I can get up on stage and I can sing, I can dance, I can talk. It's that exchange with the audience that makes me feel like
Mm,
it's like when you feel people are judging you or they're looking at you or don't understand what you're saying or whatever. That's what makes or has made me a little bit like, oh, I feel like my nervous system's jangling now, because not that I'm necessarily looking for external validation from them, but there's something that happens when people don't necessarily understand what you're talking about, or they until they get to that point of feeling deeply connected with you. I think it can feel
mm.
you can feel very exposed, you can feel very, very vulnerable, whether you're talking about something vulnerable or not. Yeah, yeah, it can
Yeah.
feel, yeah.
Yeah, I went briefly into this in my book and a lot deeper in the thesis as well. I mean, the stage is going to bring out all of our shadows unconsciously, and then we're
Mm,
going to project them at our audience. And this
yeah.
is what I mean, it's one of the best tools for getting to know yourself because it's going
Mm,
to show you the parts that have been suppressed or hidden from your own awareness if you're willing to do the inquiry.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And that for me is a completely normal thing you're saying. Like what you said there, everyone goes through that. A lot of the time people say to me, if I work with you, are you going to help me get rid of the fear? And I kind of laugh. I'm like, no, you don't get rid of it. Like your
Like,
nervous
I'm
system
good, but I'm not
definitely.
a wizard.
Well, no, it's like you stop trying to get rid of it. Like for one, there is a nervous system calibration where you can just hold a lot more, and you don't even label it as fear to start with.
Mm,
The intensity doesn't spike you. So there's more natural presence that's there for the people
mm,
after these trainings. But the other thing is like what I actually encourage people to do is to move towards the fear. That thing you're calling
mm,
fear or nervousness or anxiety, like that's
yeah,
aliveness. And
yeah.
that's the silent call of the stage beckoning you towards it.
Mm,
Towards
mm,
it. And
mm,
when you stop running from that and you develop a relationship to it, it is a bit of an acquired taste.
yeah.
I think maybe what I'm doing is helping people acquire that taste. You
Yeah.
recognize that some of the most powerful things you have to express on stage are through the fear.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And that reminds me of something I also heard you say in another interview. Like you had your hand in front of you and you're like, how far away are you from that true expression of self, and can you lean into that? Yeah. And I think from what you're saying and what I feel as well, I think it's less about, or I feel like it's less about getting rid of that fear, and it's more about more deeply accepting yourself, being able to lean into your truth and lean into that deeper acceptance rather than trying to get rid of fear or get rid of your shadows or get rid of something. And I feel like it's the same in particularly a really deeply soul aligned relationship. Your shadows are all going to come up there as well. And it's like how much can I meet that? How much can I move towards that? How much can I stop projecting that
Mhm.
on him or her and take responsibility for it and integrate it? Yeah. I think whether it's in speaking or writing or relationship, I feel like we can lose the essence of what it means to be human. And I feel like the new way, or the way we're all leaning towards or wanting to see, is moving more into that realness, moving more into that showing who we truly are and that humanness. I feel like things like AI, like I mentioned before, can support us in any of these endeavors, but it's like, how do we not take out our essence? Funny, I've been writing in a book recently, and the publisher did like a line edit and changed some stuff, and I was like, oh, I feel like, and I was trying to figure out a way to express it to her, and I said it on a call the other day. I feel like I'm a kid that's just given you glitter painting, and you've just made it black and white.
Mm,
I'm like, you've just like taken me out of it. And I get that there's got to be grammatical edits and it's got to be of a certain standard, but it's like, how can we maintain that standard and have it polished without losing the sparkle, without losing the essence of it and like our style? It's like I don't want to write a textbook through ChatGPT, or we don't want to do a presentation from that place either. Yes, things like ChatGPT and stuff can support those things, but yeah, being able to maintain the human truth in it as well, human essence.
Yeah, for me, it's like if AI or if a computer can do this without you, then you're not relevant. You don't need to be doing it. And
Mm,
that's where I think we as humans forget, like, yes, our knowledge and intellect is valuable to a certain degree, but we forget how much we are the mediums of the message.
mm,
And the role of the medium is to make it engaging. It's like if you can bang a script into a computer and have the computer read it, and you're going
mm.
to do exactly the same thing. It's like, what's the point? It's like you're
Yeah,
not really
yeah,
necessary in this equation. And
yeah.
there's a sense of the invitation there is like, oh, okay, I have to grow to allow this to move through me. So my passion, my joy, my inspiration I felt in acquiring this knowledge is something the audience can build a relationship with in the way I deliver it.
Yeah, it reminds me of what you call your company or your business Enlivened Speaking. It's like, how do we bring it to life? How do we bring just the words on the page or the words that we're speaking into really having depth to them and bringing ourselves to the message or the communication? I've heard you speak about that before, that there's often a part of us that's been suppressed and is actually looking for expression, and about expanding your capacity essentially to be able to hold the part that's emerging within us. So I was wondering, maybe you could share a little bit about what you mean by that there's part of us that's been suppressed and is looking for expression.
I mean, as a different kind of metaphor, if we were to play for this, if you think of all of us like a keyboard, and
Mm,
there's, I don't know, let's say 30 notes on the keyboard, we might be comfortable playing like five or six of them. And
yeah.
these other notes, the first time you play them, they're going to feel awkward, even if you have the courage to play them. You're like, oh, I don't know what that sounds like. I don't know how
Mm,
it feels if I do X or say X or whatever. And as a very obvious example for a lot of men showing emotions
mm,
outwardly like it's not accepted or whatever the thing is, anything you can think of here. So for me, the journey and the invitation is as I play a new note, can I hold myself in that and can I allow that
mm,
new note to blossom and express itself through me? And this can really, like, I just want to reiterate this again. This can be anything. For some people, they're afraid of showing their authority. Like they're afraid of
mm,
making a stand for something. And the first time they do it, it's going to feel clunky and they're going to be like, oh, and it's like, no, we're just
mm.
gonna hold. Like, can you just hold that note? I had a client I
Yeah.
worked with recently, and the energy of claiming was really strong. I'm like, you just need to be in the kind of claiming that doesn't lose focus. Like when you're looking at someone, it's like you're looking down the barrel and nothing else exists but this moment. And you're just
Mm,
taking complete ownership of that moment. And that was like, it was a process, It took her like a good half an hour to really feel the safety of like, whoa, this is what it's like to hold this inside myself. I'm like, yeah.
mm,
And unconsciously in her case, and for all of our cases, she'd been running from that her whole life. Like her
mm.
system had never developed the algorithm of how do I hold this type of communication. So
Yeah.
the idea is we're going to find a lot more aliveness and relationship to life as we start expressing more of ourselves.
Mm,
And life gets to respond to us inside of that. Your life is a result of the words you speak, which is why I'm not
mm,
too much into this whole manifestation thing. I'm like, if you start communicating differently, you're going to start creating different experiences in life, which a lot of us
mm.
are scared of, which is why we don't extend beyond that, comfortable range of five or six notes.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like anything, the more that you like, until you've done something, it's not going to feel comfortable.
Mm.
And if you lean towards that, even on a smaller scale, even in front of friends or in front of a partner, or like you said, in smaller rooms, you don't have to be on a stage with 500,000 people straight off the bat, but to start to bring out those aspects of self and talk to them is like you get over the fear of being seen by being seen.
Exactly.
Or you get over the fear of judgment or the fear of people seeing something that maybe you haven't fully accepted about yourself by one accepting it yourself and then letting other people see it.
Yeah. And this is
Yeah,
also for me why I love the stage as a tool for transformation, because often if you're expressing something on stage, you're being seen in it for the first time. You can't
yeah,
run in this like self-development thing of like, oh, I'm going to meditate and I'm going to do plant medicine and then I'm going to speak to this person. I'm like, great, but all the insights are internal. Like until that starts coming through you and it starts moving into the web of life and you're witnessed and experienced and you change
yeah,
people's expectations and relationships to you, it's a bit like internal masturbation. Like you're having a great time collecting insights.
Yeah, yeah, and it's not actually, yeah, nothing's actually moving really because you're comfortable inside yourself. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, I know this well because I spent a lot of time there as well. Um,
Mm, mm,
yeah.
yeah. I find it really interesting as well, like where you came from and the work that you do today, because it's like from one extreme to the other, like what
Yeah,
you're
yeah, it's pretty wild. And
doing.
like in the short form of the journey, I grew up as a stuttering refugee kid from war-torn Yugoslavia. Came to Australia when I was 5. Had selective mutism most of my life. I kind of still actually have selective mutism, which basically means there were situations where my voice just wouldn't come out. It's
Okay.
selective mutism, but I don't get to select when it's on and when it's off. And usually, any situation that was outside of my close friends and family, my voice would just cut off and I wouldn't be able to get anything out. And even if I tried, I would just end up stuttering,
Oh,
which,
wow.
people often assume you're like mentally handicapped when that happens.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
learned to most of the time to just not speak.
yeah,
Um, so yeah, from that, for me to be doing this work is a pretty wild jump, which is
yeah, yeah.
like many of these things I'm saying over and over again, many uncomfortable moments, many choices of what happens if I say this thing I've never said. And
Mm.
life just keeps opening up and blossoming.
And that's the people that I think have the biggest impact as well. People that have actually transformed themselves from things like that. It's kind of like if I was a drug addict or something, or I was addicted to alcohol, I would want the person that's overcome that to teach me how to overcome it rather than going and reading a book or having some professor stand on the stage and tell me how to do it. Like, I want to actually speak with the person that's done it. So I feel like it seems like one extreme to the other with what you do, but it's also perfect. I feel like that's the depth of connection, even on a surface level, that people need, where it's like you've overcome and are still overcoming on a different level what they want to overcome.
Yeah, completely.
Yeah.
I
So,
think what we're touching here is relationship. Like for me, even
yeah.
as you say that, I think what we're yearning for is the relationships. Like if this person can do it, I can do it too. And we're
Yeah.
wanting to borrow or embody that relationship inside of ourselves. For me, it's like there's almost a chemical process that's happening. Like, oh, okay, I can be and I can have this as well.
Yeah. Yeah. It reminds me of something that another speaker trainer that I worked with in the past said to us, that when we own aspects of ourselves or communicate things or have overcome something and share that with them, that then gives other people unconscious permission to do the same. I feel like when someone has gone on that journey themselves, people have more trust maybe, or more faith, or like a higher expectation that person's going to be able to get them the transformation as well if they've been able to get themselves the transformation.
Yeah, I
um
think the big question here is around trust. And I
yeah,
think we're really looking to receive this from people we trust. And, I'm thinking like coaches are not always people that can do it, but there's a level of trust because of the results they've created, if not for
yes,
themselves, for someone else, like when you think of sport or something like that. And, our parents could say the same thing to us, but because it doesn't come with the weight of trust, we unconsciously don't take on the value of that information. And I think this for me is a massive, massive piece around like, I'm about to be a father and just this sense of what it means to actually parent. And
yeah,
I'm putting some of these bits together just as I speak to you, like what it actually means to be able to communicate things that move with trust as opposed to just knowledge or just
yeah,
wisdom. Like for it to
yeah,
come with the trusted sense of I've put this through life and I've created the results from it
mm,
compared to here's what I believe.
yeah, yeah. And I think that's relevant for adults, but especially children. It's like what they say about monkey see, monkey do. I feel like you actually connect deeper with children when they have seen you do something, or when you show them something rather than tell them don't put that there or don't do this, or children are like, well, why, like, or what do you mean because I said so. It's like, whereas when you can communicate to a child actually the depth of why, or when they can see why they're not supposed to do something, or that, I feel like that's where the change in behavior happens. And it's funny, it's like you teach talking on stage and speaking on stage, but like you said, this is relevant for being a parent, being a good partner, being a good
Mm.
friend, being a good business person, selling to people, being able to, yeah, being able to connect with them at a deeper level. It's almost like sometimes when we communicate, it's like being able to say it in a way where the person understands internally what you're saying.
Yeah. That's a really good way of saying it. Yeah. Like they
Yeah,
have to take ownership of what's being said.
yeah, yeah.
And
Or
I
they can
think for
feel
me,
it.
with speaking from stage is how do we communicate in a way that allows them to take ownership?
So that kind of segues nicely to one of the last things that I wanted to discuss with you, and that is the art of storytelling. How do we tell a story or how do we communicate experiences that we've had in a way that people can connect with them as if they've had that experience when actually they don't have any reference point to what we're talking about? It reminds me of something that I heard a business coach say in the past. He used the analogy of a mango. And he was like, how do you communicate what a mango tastes like to someone that's never tasted a mango? And it's something like that. It's such an experiential thing. And there's somewhat limited words to convey what anything tastes like, I suppose, if you haven't actually tasted it. I mean, in this case with a mango, it's kind of like, well, it's mangoey. It's tropically, I don't know. So I guess the same thing has occurred to me in relation to communicating a message or speaking in front of people. How do you, yeah, get that message across when, how do you make them feel like they've had that experience, I guess, when they don't have any reference point. Like for me, trying to share the twin flame concept at times feels a little bit like that. I'm like, they've not experienced what I've experienced. So how do I communicate it in a way that they can relate to it?
Yeah, it's a really good question. Hey, Cheryl, I want to invite you to come along to my training. It's been in the
Yeah.
back of my mind the whole time we've been talking.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I've actually thought about it as well, to be honest. I feel like maybe I need to now.
All right, well, let's have that chat at some point
Yes.
after this.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So storytelling for me, there's many layers I can speak of. There's the skill set of storytelling, but I feel what you're asking is even the layer below that, which not many
Mm,
people ask about, which for me is like the energetics of storytelling.
yeah.
And you're not telling a story. What you're doing is you're letting people into an experience you've had. And this is where the best
Mm,
storytellers allow us to go because we get transfixed if someone allows themselves to open that portal of here's an experience I had.
yeah.
And energetically, it's like a world of difference when I train this. It's like, yeah, good, you told that story well. Now, the magic question is, can you let us in there with you? And I'm like,
Mm,
I'm getting goosebumps as I say this. Because when
yeah.
a storyteller does that, it's like, oh my God, I feel like I was in it with you. And it
Yes.
is so rich because we can't live all the experiences life has to offer us. But through
Mm,
stories, we can gather such deep insights from the lives and lessons other people have learned. So
mm,
for me, that's often the question. Am I telling the story? Am I letting people into this moment with me?
mm, mm,
And that
mm.
second one is always going to be more vulnerable, like touching on all the other things we've discussed up until that point.
Yeah. And I've always found like I'm able to go there in my writing. Like I can write quite profoundly and quite poetically from feeling or from
Mhm.
like things that I've experienced that have been deeply emotional. But when I try to speak it, it's like, it's much more challenging for me to calibrate my nervous system, to not allow the other person's energy to affect me. Yeah, that's still something that I'm working with. Whereas when I'm just in my own energy with the piece of paper and a pen or the laptop, it's like da da da. I can be like I can let myself be fully seen in a different way.
This is also what we touched on earlier. It's
Yeah.
that capacity for your presence to hold the audience, but also to hold you.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. And I feel like that's maybe even more important. How do you hold yourself first
Mm.
before worrying about the audience?
Completely. For me, it's
Like,
like people might not see the video, but it's like there's one
yeah.
hand and you're standing in your hand and your
Yeah.
own hand is holding you. And then there's a bigger hand that's underneath all of that,
Yeah.
that's holding the audience and holding you. It's like
Yes.
both things are happening at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah. So just before we wrap up, is there anything else that you feel like you'd like to share today in
Really good
discussing?
fun. You know, I do a lot of podcasts and I really enjoyed this one. Like
Yes.
your
Yeah. I know it's
research
been good.
and
Like,
your relationship to my work has just allowed us to get into some layers that people don't usually touch on. So I've thoroughly
yeah.
enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's been really good. And I looked at a few other ones that you'd done and thought, how can I make this a little bit unique and how can I connect it with what I talk about? Because I'm like, embodied speaking doesn't necessarily relate, obviously, to a soul aligned twin flame relationship. But I'm like, I heard you say something about being in relationship to your truth. I'm like, that's it. That's where I'm gonna go with it, because that's, like I said at the start, that's what I feel like these partnerships are, and being able to maintain a partnership like that is about really freaking owning your truth and owning your shadow and being able to speak your truth and not run away from yourself. So it's similar to a lot of things, are similar to what comes up with speaking.
Yeah, completely. I think that we choose to make our path of mastery or part of our path of mastery, it's like it's going to start bringing up our shadows for the blessing of being able to see and integrate them, hopefully.
Yeah, and it's actually not as scary as we think. I think it's more the thought of it, or the preconceived idea of it, that's worse than actually stepping into it.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's like you're terrified of, like, oh my God, I need to say this in front of someone. Like for me, for example, when, to go back to the start, when I had to tell that guy that I love him, the ruminating in my head about it was way worse than the actual experience. I mean, I still did like try, and it took me about 45 minutes to actually say it. But yeah, it was definitely the going around in my head about it, or just dealing with that emotion and that energy in my body beforehand, was
Yeah.
way worse than actually sitting in front of him.
Yeah, I completely get that. And sometimes I say to people, I'm like, sometimes I say things just so they get out of my head. Like, I
Yeah.
know it might be awkward and uncomfortable and scary when I express it, but I'm like, at least the channel I'm watching and here changes after that.
Yeah, 100%. So, how do people connect with you? How do they work with you if they want to? What's your
Yeah.
what's your
The
links?
best thing to do is, if you've enjoyed any of this, you can follow my work on Instagram or Facebook. I'm on LinkedIn as well, but there's a lot of like free content I'm putting up, lots of tips when it comes to speaking, communicating, that you can really utilize with anything from the stage to relationships.
Yeah,
So that's the best way to get in touch. If you're interested in the work, you can send me a message on any of those platforms and I can let you know what we have coming up. There's a few trainings happening locally and in Europe this year. So yeah.
yeah, cool. And I'll add your links at the in the bio of the episode as well, so people can
Thank you.
find them there. Yeah, cool.
Awesome.
Well, thanks so much for joining me today, Miroslav. It's been a really good chat.
Yeah, thank you. Take care, Cheryl.
Thanks for listening, everyone. If you got something out of this episode, be sure to follow or subscribe on Apple Podcasts or Spotify so you'll be notified about new episodes. Also, I would love if you take the time to leave a review, especially if you listen on Apple Podcasts. This will help more people gain access to the golden nuggets of wisdom on the path back to really being who you were in the first place, and some great insights on overcoming challenges in relation to your divine counterpart. If you really got something out of this, take a screenshot of this episode on your phone and share it on social media. And share in the post what it was that you loved about this episode. What was your big takeaway? And if you tag me at Untame Your Flame, I'll be sure to reshare it. Thanks again for listening, and I'll see you all on the next episode.